When Giants Fall. The stars had always been beautiful from Luna Base. Captain Jenna Torres pressed her palm against the reinforced viewport, watching Earth's blue marble spin slowly in the distance. 23 years in the service, and she never got tired of that view. The coffee in her other hand was terrible, as always, but it was human coffee, bitter and real. That was before the sky caught fire. The first sign wasn't an alarm or a transmission. It was light, wrong light, purple and angry, streaking across the star field like infected wounds. Jenna's coffee cup hit the floor as the base shuddered, emergency klaxons shrieking to life. All hands to battle stations. The voice over the comm belonged to Commander Phillips, but it cracked with something Jenna had never heard before. Fear. She ran through corridors filled with panicked personnel, her boots echoing against metal floors. The command center was chaos when she arrived. Screens flickered with impossible readings. Officers shouted over each other, and at the center of it all stood Dr. Vincent Hayes, the base's chief scientist, staring at a display with his face white as bone. "What's the situation?" Jenna demanded. "Unknown. Vessels, massive energy signatures," Lieutenant Jake Morrison called from his station. His young face was flushed with adrenaline. "They just appeared, Captain. No warp signatures, no dimensional rifts. They just materialized." Jenna looked at the tactical display. 12 contacts, each one the size of a city, arranged in perfect formation around Earth's orbital space. Their ships were sleek, organic-looking things that seemed to pulse with internal light. "Attempts at communication?" she asked. "Nothing, ma'am. They're ignoring all frequencies." Then the first shot came. A beam of pure energy lanced from the nearest vessel, striking Beijing's orbital elevator. The massive structure, humanity's pride and gateway to the stars, simply vanished. 30,000 people, gone in an instant. "Jesus Christ," someone whispered. The second beam hit Sydney's spaceport. The third took out the Mars relay station. Each strike was precise, calculated, devastating. Not random destruction, but surgical removal of humanity's space infrastructure. "They're cutting us off," Dr. Hayes said quietly. "Isolating us." Jenna felt something cold settle in her stomach. This wasn't a battle. This was an extermination. First, contact Last Hope. The transmission came an hour later after they'd watched helplessly as Earth's defensive satellites were picked off one by one. The voice that spoke was mechanical, translated by some alien device, but the arrogance in it was unmistakable. "Primitive species of the third planet. I am Commander Krazak of the Zenith Empire. Your world has been selected for cleansing. You have demonstrated potential for spacefaring capability, which makes you a future threat to Imperial stability. Your extinction will be efficient." The channel closed before anyone could respond. "Cleansing," Morrison repeated, his voice hollow. "They're going to wipe us out because we might be dangerous someday?" Jenna stared at the tactical display, mind racing. The Zenith ships hadn't moved from their positions. They were taking their time. Methodical. Confident. "Dr. Hayes," she said suddenly. "The energy readings from their weapons. What's the frequency?" Hayes pulled up his data, fingers flying over the controls. "Highly focused particle beams, operating on a narrow bandwidth." "Why?" "Because nothing in nature operates on just one frequency," Jenna said. "If they're using such specific energy signatures, there has to be a reason, a limitation, or a weakness," Hayes said, catching on. The next few hours were desperate. While Luna Base's small garrison prepared for the inevitable assault, Hayes and his team worked frantically to analyze the captured energy signatures. Jenna found herself thinking about her sister back on Earth, about the nephew she'd never see grow up, about all the things humanity would never accomplish. But she also thought about spite. Pure, human spite. The pattern emerges. "I've got something," Hayes announced. The command center had grown quiet as Earth's major cities began going dark one by one. Their energy weapons, their ship propulsion, even their life support systems, they're all synchronized to a specific harmonic frequency. Meaning? Meaning their entire technology base operates like a massive orchestra. Everything has to be in tune, or it doesn't work. Morrison looked up from his station. So if we could disrupt that frequency, we could cause a cascade failure in their systems, Hayes finished. But we'd need to get close, really close. Jenna felt a plan forming in her mind. It was insane, suicidal, and completely human. What about the experimental fighters in Bay 7? The ones with the new fusion drives? Those prototypes? They're barely tested and there's only 3 of them. But they're fast and they're small enough to avoid their main batteries. Hayes shook his head. Even if you could get close enough to one of their ships, the energy burst needed to disrupt their harmonic frequency would fry any human pilot within a kilometer radius. Then we don't put humans in them, Jenna said simply. She turned to the room. Everyone listen up. We're going to do something they won't expect. We're going to fight back. The desperate gambit. The plan was simple in its desperation. Using the base's manufacturing facilities, they would convert the 3 prototype fighters into unmanned missiles, each one carrying a modified reactor core, programmed to detonate at the exact counter-frequency to the zenith harmonic signature. It's a one-shot deal, Hayes warned as they worked. Even if it works, even if we disrupt one ship, the others will adapt. They'll change their frequencies. Then we better make it count, Jenna replied, sealing the last fighter's payload bay. The Zenith had been methodical in their cleansing, working their way through Earth's population centers with the patients, exterminators. They hadn't bothered with Luna Base yet, probably seeing it as no threat. That arrogance would be their mistake. Morrison volunteered to pilot the guidance systems remotely. His hands shook as he powered up the fighters, but his voice was steady. Fighters away, he announced. On the screens, they watched 3 tiny dots accelerate toward the nearest zenith vessel. The alien ship was massive, its hull covered in what looked like scales that shifted color in the light. It was beautiful and terrible. The first fighter was detected at 2 kilometers out. Point defense systems activated, streams of energy reaching out to swat it from space. It died in a brief flare of light. The second made it closer, dancing through the defensive fire with Morrison's skillful guidance. But a lucky shot clipped its wing, sending it spinning into the void. The third fighter flew straight and true. Morrison had stopped trying to dodge, instead pouring all power into the engines. It struck the Zenith ship's hull, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then the alien vessel began to scream. When monsters bleed. The sound came through space itself, a harmonic wail that made everyone in the command center cover their ears. The Zenith ship's scales began changing color rapidly, cycling through spectrum patterns too fast to follow. Sections of its hull started to bulge and contract like a living thing in pain. It's working, Hayes breathed. The harmonic disruption is causing a cascade failure in their biological technology, because that's what they realized the Zenith ships were. Not built but grown. Living vessels with crews that were more like symbiotic partners than pilots. And just like any living thing, they could be hurt. The wounded ship began to drift, its perfect formation broken. The other Zenith vessels moved to assist it, and for the first time since the attack began, they showed something other than cold confidence. They showed concern. They care about each other, Morrison said with wonder. They're not just machines, they're people. Jenna felt no sympathy. She thought of Beijing, of Sydney, of all the human cities that had been wiped away without a second thought. Good. Now they know how it feels. The Zenith ship's death took another hour. They watched as its bioluminescent patterns faded, as its organic hull began to decay and split. When it finally broke apart, the pieces didn't burn like metal. They dissolved like flesh returning to dust. A new transmission came from the remaining Zenith vessels. Commander Krazak's voice was no longer dismissive. Luna installation. You have demonstrated tactical capability beyond our projections. This changes nothing. Your species will still be cleansed, but we acknowledge your resistance was unexpected. The channel closed, but something had changed. The Zenith formation shifted, becoming more defensive. They were no longer treating humans as helpless primitives. They were treating them as enemies. The price of defiance. The retaliation came swiftly. 3 Zenith vessels broke formation and began accelerating toward Luna Base. Their approach was different now, cautious but determined. They had learned to respect human ingenuity, but that only made them more dangerous. Incoming, Morrison announced unnecessarily. Everyone could see the alien ships growing larger on the screens. How long until they're in firing range? Jenna asked. 12 minutes. 12 minutes to live. Jenna thought about the message they'd sent to Earth, warning them about the Zenith harmonic frequencies. Maybe someone down there could use the information. Maybe their sacrifice would mean something. Captain, Hayes said quietly, there's something else. When their ship died, I detected a massive energy pulse. Not just the death throes, but something else. A transmission. What kind of transmission? Quantum entanglement. Instantaneous communication. Across any distance. They were sending data somewhere. Information about us. The implications hit her like a physical blow. They're reporting back to their empire, telling them that humans are more dangerous than they thought, which means more ships will come, Morrison said. Bigger ones, better prepared. Jenna nodded grimly. By fighting back, by showing the Zenith that humans wouldn't go quietly into extinction, they'd painted a target on their entire species. But what choice did they have? Roll over and die? No, she said aloud. We did the right thing. We showed them we're not helpless, that humans fight back. The first energy beam struck Luna Base's outer hull. The lights flickered and the deck shuddered under their feet. All hands prepare for emergency evacuation, Jenna announced over the comm. This is not a drill. But even as she gave the order, she knew there was nowhere to run. The escape pods wouldn't make it past the Zenith blockade. They were trapped. Seeds of rebellion. The second blast punched through the base's primary power systems. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. The air recycling systems began failing, and Jenna could taste the sharp ozone smell of overloaded electronics. Captain, Hayes said, clutching a data pad to his chest. I need to get this information to Earth. Everything we've learned about their frequency weaknesses, their biological technology. If there's even a chance, do it, Jenna ordered. Morrison, can you rig the long-range transmitter? Already on it, the young lieutenant replied, his fingers dancing over damaged controls. I can boost the signal, but it'll drain what's left of our power. We'll have maybe one shot. Another blast rocked the base. This one was closer, more personal. Jenna heard screaming from the lower levels. Upload everything, she decided. All our tactical data, our analysis of their weaknesses, everything about their harmonic technology. If we're going to die, at least we'll die useful. Hayes nodded and began the upload. On the screens, they could see the Zenith ships closing in for the kill. Their bioluminescent hulls pulsed with what almost looked like anger. Upload complete, Morrison announced. Message sent to all Earth military frequencies. Good, Jenna said. She picked up the base's general communication system. This is Captain Jenna Torres, Luna Base Actual. We are under attack by a hostile alien force calling itself the Zenith Empire. They came without warning, without negotiation. They came to exterminate us because they fear what we might become. She paused as another blast shook the base. Debris rained from the ceiling. But we made them bleed, she continued. We showed them that humans don't die easy, that we adapt, we learn, we fight back. To whoever receives this message, know that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our numbers. It's our refusal to give up. The final blast came as she was speaking. The bulkheads around the command center began to buckle, and she could hear the hiss of escaping atmosphere. We've uploaded everything we learned about their weaknesses, she said into the comm, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. Use it. Make them pay for every human life they've taken. Show them what happens when you pick a fight with humanity. The transmission cut off as the command center's walls gave way. But the message was already racing through space at light speed, carrying with it the seeds of rebellion and the promise that humanity's war against the Zenith Empire had only just begun. In the silence that followed Luna Base's destruction, something new stirred in the hearts of humans across Earth. It wasn't just grief or fear, though those were present too. It was something harder, more dangerous. It was the understanding that they were no longer alone in the universe, and that their new neighbors had made a terrible mistake. They had shown humanity what they were capable of, and in doing so, they had awakened something that would haunt them across the stars. The age of human warfare had begun, and the Zenith Empire would learn to regret the day they decided that humanity was too dangerous to live. Ghost in the Machine. 3 months after Luna Base died, Captain Jenna Torres was supposed to be dead too. According to Zenith records, she had perished along with the rest of the installation's crew. The Empire's files listed her as terminated, resistance neutralized. They were wrong about the resistance part. She floated in the wreckage of what had once been Orbital Station Gamma, her salvage suit systems running on minimal power. Around her, the debris field stretched for thousands of kilometers, the remains of humanity's once proud space infrastructure. But hidden among the twisted metal and frozen corpses was something the Zenith had missed in their systematic cleansing. Technology. Human technology that could be repurposed, modified, turned into something the aliens wouldn't recognize until it was too late. "Ruby, you getting this?" Jenna whispered into her comm, her breath fogging the helmet's visor. Engineer Ruby Chen's voice crackled back through the encrypted channel. "Reading you, Ghost. What have you found this time?" Jenna smiled grimly at the call sign. The underground. Resistance had started calling her Ghost after her third successful strike against Zenith patrols. "Dead women," they said, "made the best hunters." "Jackpot," she replied, maneuvering toward a partially intact weapons platform. "Military-grade plasma cannons, still in their housing. If we can adapt these to your frequency disruptors, we can turn them into ship killers," Ruby finished. "But Jenna, the power requirements alone would fry any human pilot within 50 meters. Then we don't put humans in the firing line." Jenna began carefully extracting the cannon assembly. Remote guidance, pre-programmed attack runs, hit and fade before they know what's happening. It had been Ruby's idea originally, back when they were still hiding in the ruins of Denver. The brilliant engineer had taken Dr. Hayes' research on Zenith harmonic frequencies and weaponized it. If the aliens' technology was like an orchestra, then Ruby had figured out how to make it play the wrong song. "Speaking of which," Ruby continued, "Nathan's got eyes on a priority target. Zenith strategist vessel, designation unknown. Single, ship, minimal escort." Jenna felt her pulse quicken. Strategist vessels were different from the standard cruisers. They carried the Empire's tactical commanders, the minds behind the systematic extermination of humanity. Taking one down would be more than symbolic. "Where?" "Asteroid Belt, Sector 7. It's conducting some kind of survey operation." "Perfect." Jenna finished securing the plasma cannon to her improvised cargo sled. "Tell Nathan I'll be there in 6 hours. Time to show them what happens when they hunt alone." The art of war, the asteroid belt had become humanity's refuge. Too dangerous for large Zenith vessels to navigate easily. Too scattered for effective bombardment. Small groups of survivors had carved out hidden bases in the larger rocks, connected by a network of smugglers and scavengers, who moved supplies through routes the aliens couldn't track. Jenna docked her ship at Ceres Station, a hollowed-out asteroid that served as the Resistance's primary staging area. The corridors were cramped and poorly lit, but they were human corridors, filled with human voices and human hope. Nathan Cross was waiting for her in the command center, his pilot's eyes fixed on a tactical display. The man had been flying freight runs between Mars and Earth when the invasion started. Now he was the Resistance's best scout, able to slip through Zenith patrols like smoke through fingers. "Tell me about our target," Jenna said without preamble. Nathan pulled up the surveillance data. Zenith vessel, approximately 2 kilometers long. Bioluminescent hull patterns indicate command authority. It's been in the belt for 48 hours, scanning asteroids with some kind of deep penetration sensor array. Looking for us? Maybe. Or maybe looking for something else. Nathan highlighted a section of the scan data. Its movement pattern is methodical, systematic, like it's searching for something specific. Jenna studied the readings. The Zenith ship was elegant even in hologram, its organic curves and pulsing lights, making it look more like a sea creature than a spacecraft. But she'd learned to see past the beauty to the threat beneath. What about escorts? 2 patrol craft, standard configuration. They're running a loose perimeter, nothing we can't slip past. Ruby joined them, wiping grease from her hands. The frequency disruptor is ready. I've modified it to work with the plasma cannon you salvaged. 1 shot should be enough to cripple their primary systems. Should be? Ruby grinned. Nothing's certain when you're improvising weapons from scrap, but the math looks good. Jenna nodded. She'd learned to trust Ruby's math. The engineer had a gift for seeing patterns in chaos, for finding ways to make impossible things work. All right, here's the plan, Jenna began, but Nathan interrupted. There's something else, he said quietly. Intelligence from Earth. The Zenith aren't just cleansing population centers anymore. They're strip mining the planet. The words hit Jenna like a physical blow. What do you mean? Raw materials, metals, rare earth elements, organic compounds. They're harvesting everything down to the bedrock, like they're preparing for a long occupation. Jenna felt something cold settle in her chest. She'd assumed the Zenith were simply exterminating humanity to prevent future competition. But this suggested something worse. They weren't just destroying human civilization. They were erasing every trace that it had ever existed. How long? She asked. At current rate, maybe a year before the planet's stripped bare. 1 year. 12 months to find a way to hurt the Zenith badly enough that they'd reconsider their strategy. It seemed impossible, but impossible was becoming humanity's specialty. Then we better make this count, she said. The hunt begins. Jenna's ship was a hybrid thing, part human engineering and part scavenged Zenith technology. She'd built it herself over the past 3 months, welding together pieces of destroyed vessels into something that barely qualified as spaceworthy. But it was fast, stealthy, and most importantly, unpredictable. The Zenith thought in patterns. Their tactics were elegant, efficient, based on mathematical precision and long-term strategic planning. They didn't expect wild improvisation or desperate gambles. That was their weakness. She approached the target zone using the gravity wells of larger asteroids to mask her approach. The Zenith strategist vessel hung in space like a predator at rest, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing in slow, hypnotic rhythms, beautiful and deadly. In position, she whispered into her comm. Beginning approach. Ruby's voice crackled back. Remember, you've got maybe 10 seconds after firing before their backup systems come online. Make them count. Copy that. Jenna armed the frequency disruptor, feeling the weapon's exotic energies building up charge. The device was ugly compared to the graceful alien ship ahead of her, a brutal collection of human engineering and alien components held together by determination and spite. The patrol craft were exactly where Nathan had predicted, following their programmed routes with mechanical precision. Jenna slipped between them like a shadow, her ship's modified emission signature fooling their sensors into reading her as debris. She was 300 meters from the strategist vessel when everything went wrong. Alarms began shrieking from the Zenith ship. Its hull patterns shifted from slow pulses to rapid, angry flashes. The patrol craft turned toward her position with predatory grace. They made me, Jenna reported, throwing her ship into evasive maneuvers. How did they know? Unknown, Ruby replied. Maybe they've adapted to our stealth signatures. Or maybe Jenna thought they'd been expecting her. The realization hit her as the first energy beams lanced past her ship. This wasn't a survey mission. This was a trap. Predator and prey, the Zenith patrol craft, were fast, but Jenna's hybrid ship was faster. She dove into the asteroid field, using the floating rocks as cover while enemy fire lit up space around her. Each near miss sent fragments of stone spinning away into the void. Ghost, you need to abort. Nathan's voice cut through. The static. That's not a strategist vessel. It's a hunter-killer, designed specifically for anti-insurgency operations. Jenna felt her blood turn to ice. The Zenith had built a ship specifically to hunt humans. To hunt her. How do you know? Because I'm looking at its tactical profile right now. That bioluminescent pattern isn't command authority. It's a predator display. They've been tracking resistance operations, learning our methods. A plasma beam seared past Jenna's cockpit, close enough to make her instruments flicker. The hunter-killer was closing in, its organic hull rippling with anticipation. Options? She asked, spinning her ship around a particularly large asteroid. Run, Ruby said bluntly. That thing is specifically designed to counter our frequency weapons. The disruptor won't work. But running meant the Zenith would know their tactics had been compromised. It meant future operations would be even more dangerous, and it meant accepting that humanity was truly outmatched. Jenna looked at the asteroid, around which she was hiding. It was massive, at least 50 kilometers across, with a surface covered in mining scars from humanity's expansion into the belt. Old excavation sites, abandoned equipment, and Ruby, she said slowly. What would happen if someone set off a mining charge inside an asteroid while a Zenith ship was using deep penetration sensors on it? Silence for a moment, then Ruby's voice, excited and terrified. The resonance feedback would be incredible, like shouting into an echo chamber while someone's listening with a stethoscope. Enough to damage their systems? Enough to liquefy their crew? Jenna smiled grimly. I'm going to need you to talk me through rigging an explosive symphony of destruction. The hunter-killer ship pressed its attack, herding Jenna deeper into the asteroid field. Its weapons were more sophisticated than the standard plasma beams, energy patterns that seemed to anticipate her movements. Whoever was commanding that vessel understood human psychology, could predict how a desperate pilot would react. But they didn't understand human stubbornness. Jenna guided her ship into the shadow of the massive asteroid, using its bulk to break the enemy's targeting lock. Her hands flew over the controls, accessing the ship's small complement of mining charges, standard demolition equipment designed for breaking up rock, not fighting wars. Okay, Ruby's voice guided her through the modifications. You need to reconfigure the detonation sequence to create a harmonic resonance. Set the charges to go off in sequence, each one a quarter second after the last. How many charges? All of them. And Jenna? You need to be inside the asteroid when they detonate. The resonance won't work unless the explosion is contained within the rock structure. Inside the asteroid, where she'd be trapped when 50 kilotons of explosives went off in a confined space. Jenna looked at her instruments, calculating distances and timing. There's an old mining tunnel about 2 kilometers down, she said. I can get there, but I won't be able to get out before the blast. Jenna, no. Nathan's voice cut in. There has to be another way. There isn't, she replied simply. This is the mission. This is what it costs. She dove her ship into the asteroid's mining tunnel, the walls close enough to scrape her hull. Behind her, the hunter-killer followed, its predatory instincts overriding caution. It wanted to finish the hunt personally. Perfect. The price of victory. The mining tunnel was a straight bore into the asteroid's heart, wide enough for heavy equipment but narrow enough to feel like a grave. Jenna's ship screamed through the darkness, pursued by the bioluminescent glow of the Zenith Hunter. At 2 kilometers depth, she began dropping charges. Each explosive was rigged to Ruby's specifications, timed to create a cascading resonance that would turn the entire asteroid into a bell. And the Zenith ship, with its deep penetration sensors actively scanning the rock, would be listening when that bell rang. Charges deployed, she reported, pulling her ship into a tight turn at the tunnel's end. Beginning final approach. The hunter-killer was close now, close enough that she could see the details of its organic hull. It was beautiful in its own way, like a work of art designed by an alien intelligence. But beauty didn't make genocide acceptable. On my mark, she said, finger hovering over the detonation trigger. The Zenith ship fired. A concentrated beam of energy that turned the tunnel wall to molten slag just meters from Jenna's position. She could feel the heat through her ship's hull, smell the acrid smoke of overloaded systems. Now! She triggered the charges and threw her ship into the deepest part of the tunnel, seeking what little protection the rock could provide. Behind her, The hunter-killer vessel suddenly realized its mistake. Its sensors detected the explosive resonance building in the asteroid's structure, and it tried to retreat. Too late. The explosion began at the tunnel mouth and raced inward, each charge adding its voice to a growing symphony of destruction. The asteroid rang like a massive bell, its resonance frequencies amplified and focused by the contained detonations. The sound was transmitted through the rock itself, through the very sensors the Zenith ship was using to track its prey. Jenna's ship was tossed like a toy as the tunnel collapsed around her. Her hull cracked, atmosphere leaked into space, and her engines died in a shower of sparks. But she was alive, and the hunter-killer was screaming. The resonance feedback had overloaded every system on the alien vessel. Its bioluminescent patterns flashed in rapid, chaotic sequences as its organic components tried to process the impossible harmonics. The ship convulsed, its elegant curves twisting into agonized spirals. Then it began to tear itself apart. Messages in the dark. Jenna watched through her cracked viewport as the Zenith hunter-killer destroyed itself. Pieces of its hull drifted away like dying petals, each fragment pulsing with fading light. The patrol craft that had been escorting it fled the scene, their formation broken by panic. She was trapped in the collapsed tunnel, her ship crippled and her life support failing, but she was smiling. "Ghost, respond." Ruby's voice crackled through the damaged comm system. "I'm here," Jenna replied. "Target eliminated." "We saw the explosion. Status?" "Ship's dead. Tunnels collapsed. I'm not getting out of this one." Silence. On the channel, then Nathan's voice, tight with emotion. "We're coming for you." "No," Jenna said firmly. "Too dangerous, and you'd never reach me in time. But listen, all of you. This worked. The resonance weapon, the unpredictable tactics, all of it. They're not invincible." She activated her ship's emergency beacon, not to call for rescue but to broadcast a message. Her final report to the Resistance, to Earth, to anyone who might be listening. "This is Captain Jenna Torres, Resistance Operative Designation Ghost. I have successfully eliminated a Zenith hunter-killer vessel using improvised resonance weapons. The enemy can be hurt, can be outthought, can be defeated. But they're learning our tactics faster than we expected." She paused, looking at the twisted remains of the alien ship drifting past her viewport. "They built that ship specifically to hunt humans. That means they see us as a real threat now, not just an annoyance to be exterminated. We've gotten their attention." Her life support systems gave a warning chime. 15 minutes of oxygen left, maybe 20 if she stayed calm. "To whoever continues this fight after I'm gone, remember this. They think like a hive mind, but they can be surprised. They plan for every contingency, but they can't plan for human stupidity. And most importantly, they're afraid. They wouldn't build hunter-killers unless they thought we could actually win this war." Another chime. 10 minutes. "Make them more afraid," she concluded. "Make them regret ever coming to our star system. Show them what happens when you pick a fight with humanity." She closed the channel and leaned back in her pilot's seat, watching the stars through the cracks in her viewport. Somewhere out there, other humans were carrying on the fight. Ruby would build better weapons, Nathan would find new targets, and the Resistance would grow. The Zenith Empire had wanted to cleanse humanity because they feared what humans might become. Jenna's last thought as the oxygen finally ran out was that they'd been right to be afraid. The legend spreads news of Ghost's final mission spread through the Resistance networks like wildfire. The destruction of a hunter-killer vessel proved that the Zenith could be beaten, even with their adaptive technology and superior numbers. More importantly, it proved that individual humans could make a difference. Within days, Ghost's tactics were being copied across the solar system. Small groups of survivors began targeting isolated Zenith vessels, using improvised weapons and desperate courage to even the odds. The frequency disruptor technology that Ruby had developed was replicated and improved, turning scrap metal into ship killers. But the Zenith adapted too. They began traveling in larger groups, implemented new sensor protocols, and started developing countermeasures to human resonance weapons. The war was escalating, both sides learning from each engagement. Deep in the asteroid belt, Ruby Chen stood in the expanded command center of Ceres Station, watching tactical reports flow in from across human space. Nathan Cross stood beside her, his face grim as he tallied the losses. "She did it," Ruby said quietly. "Jenna showed them we could fight back." "And now they're taking us seriously," Nathan replied. "Intelligence reports indicate they're calling in reinforcements, an entire fleet, specifically equipped for counterinsurgency operations." Ruby nodded. The easy victories were over. From now on, every battle would be harder, every success more costly. But Jenna had given them something invaluable. Proof that humans could win. "Then we better be ready for them," she said, turning back to her workbench where new weapons waited to be born. "Because if they want a real war, they're about to get one." In the depths of space, the Zenith Empire was learning a lesson that countless other species had discovered throughout history. There was nothing more dangerous than a human with nothing left to lose. And Earth, stripped of its cities and its children, had very little left to lose indeed. The hunt had begun, and both predator and prey were about to discover which species was truly more evolved for survival. The Fleet of Shadows 6. Months after Ghost's final transmission, the Zenith Empire arrived in force, not the scattered hunter-killers or survey vessels that had plagued the solar system since the invasion began, but a true war fleet. Hundreds of ships, each one larger and more deadly than anything humanity had faced before. Colonel Maria Santos watched them through the viewport of New Sparta Station, a hidden facility built into the dark side of Pluto. The alien vessels moved in perfect formation, their bioluminescent hulls creating constellations of malevolent light against the star field. "How many?" she asked quietly. Captain Oliver Reeves, her intelligence officer, checked his instruments. 417 capital ships, estimate 2,000 escort craft. Fleet composition suggests a complete extermination protocol. Maria nodded, grimly. She'd been expecting this ever since the Resistance had started winning. Every Zenith ship destroyed, every successful raid, every human life saved had been building toward this moment. The Empire had decided that half measures were insufficient. And our assets? 37 operational vessels, maybe 50 if we count the civilian craft with weapons modifications. We're outnumbered 12-1. The math was brutal, but Maria had learned not to trust math when it came to human warfare. Numbers mattered, but they weren't everything. Spirit mattered. Desperation mattered. And humanity had both in abundance. "Signal from Earth Command," another officer reported. "Priority Alpha." The hologram that flickered to life showed General Patricia Vance, Earth's military commander and one of the few senior officers to survive the initial assault. Her face was gaunt, aged beyond her years by the weight of humanity's survival. "Maria," the general said without preamble. "They're moving on Earth. The entire fleet, coordinated assault on all remaining population centers. Intelligence suggests they're planning to crack the planet's crust, turn it into an asteroid field." Maria felt something cold settle in her stomach. Not just genocide, but the complete obliteration of humanity's homeworld. Timeline? 72 hours. Maybe less. 3 days to save the human race. Maria looked around the command center at the faces of her officers, saw the same grim determination reflected in each one. They'd all lost everything already. Families, homes, futures, all swept away by alien fire. What they had left was purpose. "General," Maria said slowly, "we have a plan. It's insane. Probably suicidal, but it might work." "I'm listening." "We're going to board their flagship." The impossible plan, the Zenith command vessel, hung at the center of the alien fleet like a dark star. It was massive beyond human comprehension, easily 50 kilometers long and covered in the pulsing bioluminescent patterns that marked it as the Supreme Admiral's personal ship. According to intelligence reports, it housed not just the fleet's command structure, but the Empire's most advanced biological technologies. "The ship is essentially a living organism," Dr. Elena Vasquez explained to the assembled strike team. She was Earth's foremost expert on Zenith biology. one of the few scientists to have studied captured alien technology in depth. Neural networks, organic computers, biomechanical fusion. The entire vessel thinks as a single entity. Maria studied the holographic display of the alien ship. Weaknesses? All organic systems have one critical vulnerability, Elena continued. They can be infected. A virus specifically designed to target their biological networks could potentially shut down the entire vessel. Potentially? Elena's expression was troubled. The problem is delivery. You'd need to introduce the virus directly into the ship's central nervous system. And that system is located in the most heavily defended part of the vessel. Where? The bridge. Or what passes for one. It's not a command center like we'd recognize, but a biological interface chamber where the Supreme Admiral connects directly to the ship's consciousness. Maria felt a plan forming in her mind. It was desperate, impossible, and completely human. How close would we need to get? Physical contact with the neural interface. Someone would need to actually touch the alien command system while the virus uploaded. And the person doing it? Elena's silence was answer enough. Direct contact with a zenith neural network would fry any human nervous system within seconds. It would be a one-way mission. Volunteers only, Maria announced to the strike team. No one goes on this mission who isn't willing to die for it. Every hand in the room went up. The hybrid, while Maria's team prepared for the impossible boarding action, Ruby Chen worked frantically in her laboratory aboard Ceres Station. The engineer had been developing something new, something inspired by the fragments of Zenith technology she'd been studying for months. It's not quite human anymore, she explained to Nathan Cross as he stared at the figure suspended in the biotank. But it's not alien either, something in between. The thing in the tank had once been Lieutenant Marcus Webb, a pilot who'd volunteered for Ruby's experimental program after his ship was damaged beyond repair. Now he was something else entirely. His body was laced with Zenith biomechanical implants, his nervous system enhanced with alien neural pathways, his skin bearing the faint luminescent patterns of their technology. Will he survive the neural interface? Nathan asked. He might, Ruby replied. The hybrid biology should protect him from the worst of the feedback. But Nathan, we don't know what this will do to his mind. The alien technology, it changes how you think, how you see the world. Nathan nodded. They'd all changed since the war began. The question was whether Webb would still be human enough to complete the mission. The figure in the tank opened his eyes. They were still human eyes, but they glowed faintly with bioluminescent patterns. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonic overtones that hadn't been there before. I can hear them, Webb said softly. The Zenith fleet, their thoughts, their communications, they're afraid. Afraid of what? Ruby asked. Webb's enhanced eyes focused on her. Of us. Of what we've become. They thought they were fighting primitives, but we keep adapting, keep surprising them. They're calling in the fleet not because we're weak, but because they're terrified we might actually win. Ruby felt a chill run down her spine. If the Zenith Empire was afraid of humanity, what did that say about what humans were becoming? The final gambit. The assault began at 0300 hours Sol Standard Time. 37 human vessels, ranging from converted civilian transports to purpose-built warships, accelerated toward the Zenith fleet at maximum burn. It was the largest human offensive since the war began, and it was designed to fail. Remember, Maria broadcast to all ships, this is a distraction. Make noise, cause chaos, but the real mission happens while they're focused on you. The human fleet spread out, targeting Zenith escort vessels with everything they had. Frequency disruptors, resonance weapons, improvised missiles, and pure human fury. The alien response was swift and devastating, but that was the point. While the main fleet drew the Empire's attention, a single stealth ship slipped through the chaos toward the command vessel. Maria's strike team consisted of 12 people, soldiers, engineers, and scientists who'd volunteered to die for the chance to save their species. And Webb, the hybrid, whose transformed biology might let him survive what would kill any normal human. Approaching the target, reported their pilot, a woman named Sarah Kim who'd learned to fly by dodging Zenith patrols. Docking with the ventilation system in 30 seconds. The Zenith command ship's hull was like nothing human engineers had ever conceived. It breathed, pulsed with internal rhythms, and seemed to sense their approach despite the stealth modifications. But it didn't react defensively. Perhaps it couldn't conceive of anything as small as a human boarding party posing a real threat. That was their first mistake. Into the heart of darkness. The interior of the Zenith command ship was alien beyond imagination. Corridors that curved like arteries, walls that glowed with internal light, floors that felt warm and slightly yielding underfoot. Everything was organic, alive, part of a vast biological machine that defied human understanding. "Stay together," Maria whispered as they moved through the ship's circulatory system. "Elena, how far to the neural interface?" 2 kilometers forward, then up 17 levels, the scientist replied, consulting her bioscanner. "But Maria, the ship knows we're here. Look at the walls." The bioluminescent patterns around them were changing, shifting from the slow pulses they'd observed before to rapid, agitated flashes. The ship was excited, or perhaps alarmed. "It's trying to communicate," Webb said suddenly. His hybrid features were glowing brighter now, responding to the alien signals. "The ship, it's curious about us. It's never encountered anything like humans before." "Can you understand it?" "Fragments. It's asking what we are, how we think, so differently from other species it's encountered. Our chaos, our unpredictability. It's fascinating to them." Maria felt a chill. Even in the heart of their most advanced warship, the Zenith saw humans as an anomaly, something that didn't fit their understanding of how intelligent life should behave. They pressed deeper into the ship, past chambers filled with impossible technology and corridors that seemed to stretch into infinity. The alien crew they encountered was different from the soldiers they'd fought before. These beings were taller, more graceful, their movements flowing like dancers. They wore no armor, carried no weapons, and when they saw the human intruders, they simply watched with curious eyes. "They're not trying to stop us," one of Maria's soldiers observed. "They don't see us as a threat," Elena replied. "To them, we're just another specimen to be studied." That was their second mistake. The Supreme Admiral, the neural interface chamber, was vast, cathedral-like in its dimensions. At its center stood a pillar of living crystal, pulsing with energy patterns that made human eyes water to look at directly. And connected to that pillar, suspended in a web of biomechanical cables, was the Supreme Admiral of the Zenith Empire. Admiral Thys was beautiful in the way that apex predators were beautiful. Tall, graceful, with skin that shifted through spectrum patterns and eyes like black stars. When the humans entered the chamber, those eyes fixed on them with the kind of attention a scientist might give to an interesting insect. "So," Thys said, the words translated by implants that turned alien harmonics into human speech, "you are the chaos bringers, the species that thinks in fragments and acts without pattern." Maria stepped forward, her weapon trained on the alien. "Commander, we're here to end this war." "War?" Thys seemed genuinely puzzled. "This is not war. War implies two forces of roughly equal capability in conflict. This is cleansing, the removal of a contaminating influence from the galaxy." "Contaminating? Your species thinks wrong," Thys explained with the patience of a teacher addressing a slow student. "All intelligent life follows predictable patterns, develops along logical progressions. But humans, you create order from chaos, find solutions that should not work, survive impossibilities. You are an error in the natural order." Webb stepped forward, his hybrid biology allowing him to approach the neural interface without triggering defensive systems. "You're afraid," he said simply. For the first time, this showed something like emotion. The alien's bioluminescent patterns flickered with what might have been anger. "The Zenith Empire fears nothing." "Then why are you here?" Webb continued, moving closer to the crystal pillar. Why bring an entire fleet to exterminate one small species on the edge of the galaxy? Because we're dangerous? Because we might become something that threatens your order? You already are something that threatens order, Thais replied. Your very existence proves that intelligence can arise without purpose, without plan. If other species learn this, if they begin to think as chaotically as humans, the Empire will fall. Good, Maria said simply. The virus protocol Webb reached the neural interface, his transformed hands glowing as they made contact with the alien crystal. The moment he touched it, his body convulsed as zenith neural patterns flooded his consciousness. But unlike a normal human, his hybrid biology absorbed the alien signals, processed them, began to understand them. I can see it, he gasped. The entire network, every ship, every mind, all connected through quantum entanglement. The whole empire, linked in one vast consciousness. Upload the virus, Maria ordered. Webb's fingers sank into the crystal matrix, the biomechanical interfaces accepting him as part of the ship's neural network. Elena's virus began to propagate, a cascade of corrupted data designed to turn the Zenith's greatest strength against them. What are you doing? Thais demanded, trying to disconnect from the interface. But the neural pathways held the Admiral fast, the ship's own systems preventing separation during active combat operations. Teaching you about chaos, Webb replied, his voice taking on harmonic overtones as the virus spread through the network. About human creativity, about what happens when you pick a fight with a species that doesn't know when to quit. The virus was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of destroying the Zenith biotechnology, it infected it with human thought patterns, random variables where there should be constants, creative solutions where there should be logical progressions, chaos where there should be order. Across the fleet, Zenith ships began to behave erratically. Some turned on their escorts, their targeting systems confused by randomly generated priorities. Others shut down entirely, their biomechanical brains overwhelmed by contradictory instructions. A few began accelerating away from Earth at maximum speed, their navigation systems convinced they were somewhere entirely different. Impossible, Thais whispered, watching the Empire's perfect fleet tear itself apart. Intelligence cannot function without order. Consciousness requires structure. That's where you're wrong, Maria said, watching the tactical displays show. Zenith ships destroying each other across the solar system. Consciousness requires creativity. Intelligence requires the ability to find new solutions to old problems. And humans, we're very good at finding new solutions. The price of victory, the virus continued to spread, racing through quantum entanglement, networks to Zenith fleets across the galaxy. But Webb was paying the price for the connection. His hybrid biology, pushed beyond its limits by the massive data transfer, was beginning to break down. How long? Maria asked Elena. Minutes, maybe. Less. The neural feedback is massive. Webb looked up at them, his bioluminescent patterns now matching those of the alien ship around them. Long enough, he said. I can feel them out there. Every Zenith mind in the Empire. They're all connected, all vulnerable to the same virus. What will it do to them? Teach them to think like humans, Webb replied with a painful smile. Individually, chaotically, creatively, it'll break their hive mind, force them to become something new. This stared at the hybrid human in horror. You're not destroying us, you're changing us. That's what humans do, Maria said. We adapt, we change. We make others change too. We're a contaminating influence, remember? The Supreme Admiral's perfect features twisted with something that might have been grief. The Empire, our order, our purpose. It will all be gone. Maybe, Webb said gently, but something new will take its place. Something better. The neural interface began to overload, unable to handle the cascade of corrupted data flowing through it. Webb's body seized, his hybrid nervous system finally reaching its breaking point. Get out, he ordered through clenched teeth. The ship's going to shut down completely in about 30 seconds. Maria hesitated. We can't leave you. You're not, Webb replied, his consciousness beginning to merge with the ship's neural network. I'll be everywhere the virus spreads. Every Zenith mind it touches, every ship it infects. Part of me will be there teaching them to think like humans. The new Don Maria's team escaped the dying command ship just as its biomechanical systems finally collapsed. Around them, the Zenith fleet was in chaos. Some ships fled the system entirely, their crews overwhelmed by the sudden experience of individual thought. Others simply drifted, their collective consciousness shattered into millions of separate minds. A few ships approached the human fleet, their bioluminescent patterns flickering in what the translation systems interpreted as requests for communication. "This is Admiral Thys," came a transmission from the former flagship. The alien's voice was different now, uncertain rather than commanding. The Empire no longer exists. The virus has spread to all connected systems. Every Zenith is now individual. Maria took the communication herself. "What do you want?" "To understand," Thys replied. "To learn how to think as individuals, how to exist without the collective. You have destroyed what we were, but you have also created what we might become." In the weeks that followed, reports came in from across the galaxy. Zenith fleets abandoning their cleansing operations, entire sectors of the Empire dissolving into independent worlds and cultures. The virus hadn't destroyed the aliens. It had freed them from their own rigid perfection. Some Zenith adapted quickly to individual thought, becoming explorers and artists and philosophers. Others struggled with the chaos of personal consciousness, forming new communities based on shared interests rather than imperial decree. A few couldn't handle the change at all and simply stopped. But for the first time in their species' history, every Zenith was free to choose their own path. Ruby Chen stood in the observation deck of New Sparta Station, watching as the first Zenith diplomatic vessel approached Earth. The alien ship's bioluminescent patterns were wild, chaotic, beautiful in their randomness. "Think they'll want to stay?" Nathan asked, joining her at the viewport. "Some will," Ruby replied. "Others will go explore the galaxy, see what else is out there now that they're not bound by Empire doctrine. But they'll never be the same species they were before." "Is that good or bad?" Ruby smiled, thinking of Webb's sacrifice and Jenna's defiance and all the humans who'd died to reach this moment. "It's human," she said simply. Behind them, the stars continued to shine, but the galaxy was a different place now. A place where chaos and order could coexist, where individual thought mattered more than collective purpose, where the impossible had become merely unlikely. The Zenith Empire had come to cleanse humanity because they feared what humans might become. In the end, they'd been right to be afraid. But instead of destroying humanity, they'd been transformed by it, infected with the beautiful virus of individual consciousness. The age of empires was ending. The age of exploration, of creativity, of endless possibilities had begun, and it would be a very human age indeed.